very honored with Mr. Pickens and to be up here with this group. But what do you say about somebody who's lived the life that he has been so world-renowned for 60 years and been on every show and everybody knows about him and what he is? So I thought I would just share some of the things that that he has instilled in me and the conversations that he and I have had that have meant so much to me. And you know, when we lost him, it was sad because he's just always been there as a mainstay. No matter what, we could go to him if we had a problem and he'd fix it. Sometimes it'd be a little tough, but he'd fix it. So the other day, one of my sons, my young one, the 14-year-old, he's the one that always wants to know why and always wants answers to everything. So he texted me in the morning when he was supposed to be in school, which I'm sure he was, but he was texting anyway. And he says, did Mr. Pickens pass away? And I said, yes. I texted him back. I said, yes, Gage. He passed away earlier this morning. Aren't you in class? And he said, yes, I'm in class. Well, who's going to be the boss now? I said, what? He said, well, who's going to be the boss now that Mr. Pickens is gone? And I said, well, I guess these guys will have to pick up the slack. So, anyway, my first encounter with Mr. Pickens was during his visits to campus, this part of campus, in the early 2000s. He was walking around a lot with his entourage, with the group that's here today. And he was just kind of like taking mental notes. And I was an assistant coach. And somebody said, Mr. Pickens is going to be here today. Do you want to walk around and get to know him? I said, sure, it's awesome. So I would walk around and listen to him. And he was looking at facilities. And little did I know what his plans were at that time. But I noticed right away in spending time just listening to him, where he had acknowledged me because of who I was, I'm sure, as a player. But anything else, I was just glad to be in the group and listen. And that he was all business when it came to something that he had in his mind, his vision. So I just kind of sit back and listen to him when he walked and he would talk. And I noticed right away that no task was too tall for him. And I didn't know the value or exactly what his goals were or how powerful he was at that time. Not necessarily with wealth, but just to be able to accomplish anything, essentially what other people couldn't accomplish. It was never an issue for Mr. Pickens. And that he wasn't going to take no for an answer. Because some of the people that we were walking around with, I would hear them say, well, we can't do that because they own this property. We don't own this property. The city owns this property. We can't do that. And I don't remember word for word, but it was something like, I don't care. We will find a way. And then other people that were trying to make rational decisions based on laws said, this is other people's property, and even though that we need this property, he said everything's for sale. And they said, well, you're probably right. And I remember him saying in certain words, I know I'm right. Everything's for sale. That vision in the early 2000s took place maybe 6 or 8 years later when we essentially changed our front porch to Oklahoma State athletics through football. I'm just a guy that was lucky enough to be along for the ride. But when he changed that, by not taking no for an answer and having a vision, it affected everybody. We talk a lot about the donations. There's so many of them we can't even keep up with them. So many we don't know about. But the effect that he has had on Stillwater, the alumni from Oklahoma State, the pride that he has instilled in all of us the community, the hospitals, the population, the property value of Stillwater, and the effects that he's had on us in general is astounding. I've been around Stillwater other than 5 years of my life since 1986. So I'm not conditioned to say that I know a lot about coaching football, but I am conditioned to say I know a lot about Stillwater because I've been here a long time and I know a lot of people and I've seen it grow and I've seen what's happened. None of this has changed as much as it has since he got involved, obviously through Coach Holder and the gifts that he's given to football. It started it all, and it's going to be better than ever as we move forward because of his vision. Everybody's mentioned his ranch. The ranch, the times that I went to his ranch, when I look back, that's where I learned the most from Mr. Pickens, and I didn't even realize it. He was famous for his campfire settings, where he would gather everybody at the ranch that he wanted to listen to what they had to say, give his opinion, listen to what you had to say, and then tell you what to do. He did it over dinner. He did it over golf at his ranch. He did it over hunting, shooting, ski, fishing, great food, great people. But he had a way of instilling in all of us that were lucky enough to be there work ethic, find ways to solve the problem. I remember he told me one day, and I use this all the time. I use it at home with my 3 boys. I use it with the team. I use it with the coaching staff. I use it all the time. He said one time to me that we need problem solvers. Everybody knows how to create problems. We need to find ways to solve problems. I never forgot that. I use that all the time. He also told me out at the ranch, communication is vital for success. With family, business, teams, doesn't make any difference. It's all the same. I didn't understand that. I wasn't the greatest communicator. Probably still not the greatest communicator today. But what I did learn from him was communication gives us the opportunity to discuss issues we have, good or bad, find solutions, put a plan in place, like he said. People all use his quotes. An idiot with a plan is better off than a genius without one. I had that written and it's been on my desk. Our governor used the other one I have on my desk. You can't just aim. Eventually you got to fire. So all those things that have taken place at his ranch, or he has given to us, has a lasting effect forever on this university, because most people that he had relationships with were somehow tied in to Oklahoma State University. He would tell me, he would say, Mike, don't be afraid to take chances. People don't want to come to the games and watch you and your team just play. They want to see you take chances. It's good for you, it's good for your staff, it's good for your team. Never thought about that until he brought that up. Those days that we had at the ranch with our staff were pretty special, and we didn't know it was taking place. I have something else on my desk that he told me. He said, don't be predictable. And I said, what do you mean? I don't understand. He said, you can't be predictable if you're going to be in the business world. He said, I do the same thing you do. He said, I run companies. You coach a team. It's all the same. We're doing the same thing. We just do it a little different. Don't be predictable. If you want to be the best at what you do, don't be predictable. He told me one time that controversy is good. He said, if you have a little controversy and you instigate a little controversy, it makes people think. Makes people reach down deep and decide and make decisions and think about things, and makes everybody better. The grand opening of this stadium was, in my opinion, in the limited amount of time that I was around Mr. Pickens, the proudest that I've ever seen him of an accomplishment. The people up here sitting with me have been around him much more. But for me, that day that we opened this stadium, you saw it on the video, when he was able to cut that ribbon, we were all standing there with him over here on this side of the stadium, getting ready to unveil what essentially his vision of 8 to 10 years ago, I don't know how far back before we finally got it, above my pay grade at that time, was taking place, and it had finally opened. I could see it in his face. I could see it in his eyes on the walk before the Georgia game. He had a feeling that was just different than I had ever seen. He was bursting with pride. And it was pride in his university, in the place that he loved, that he saw all the people outside that were tailgating. And most everybody here, other than the young people, know what's happened here on game days. We're fortunate enough to fill up our stadium all the time, and we still have thousands of people that are outside tailgating all over the lawns. That was started because of Mr. Pickens. Mr. Pickens generated all of this, and we just followed through, and we were fortunate enough to have some good players and win some games, and now it's better than it's ever been. But all that started in the early 2000s with his vision. His pride on that day was through the roof. OSU now was on top of the world with a football facility, with a stadium. And he had watched for so many years, and as he said when he left the stadium, that he was looking down at the top of his shoes. And that wasn't just necessarily with games. A lot of that was because of everything that was here. So finally, he got to the top of the world facility-wise for his school, in the sport that he knew that had to have success to make everything run. We beat a good SEC team. They were a blue blood, traditional, rich football program. They had Matt Stafford, a quarterback, who's still playing today. We beat him by 14 points. A game I didn't want to play. Coach Holder made me play it. I wanted to play a different school, but he put a lot of pressure on me to open a stadium against a team like that. And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. You can beat them." And we beat them by 14 points, and they were a good team. And he was so proud. And we were thankful. I personally was very appreciative of that we could accomplish that for him. So I talked earlier about his body of work and what it's done for Stillwater, all the different things, the chain reaction and what he's caused with all the success we've had. And look at the facilities that Ms. Greenwood and she even spoke about. Look what he's done to instigate between him and Coach Holder and President Hargis and the Regents and a lot of people involved. I just know about a few. But the main people that had a vision, he instigated all of that and got everybody else to say, we can do that. We can build a tennis center. We can build a track. We can build a women's soccer stadium. We can build a baseball facility. And so on and so forth. Just because of his vision. In conclusion for me, personally, other than seeing him the day we opened the stadium, my best memory of Mr. Pickens was a few years ago when I went to Dallas to visit with him. At that time, he was very healthy and vibrant, like always. I sat at the table, and we had a great 3-hour conversation, just one-on-one, just he and I, where 2.5 hours he did the talking, and 30 minutes I did the talking. But we had a really good conversation, and I felt like that there were several things that he and I agreed to disagree on, but we could sit down as two people who had one topic, and that was what can we do to continue the success of the university that we love? How can we find a way to make it better? And he said that. He said, whether you and I get along with everything or agree on everything, It's not what's important. What's important is, what can we do to make the university better as a group, as partners? He wanted us to be competitive without cheating. He said, I want you to play by the rules, which he's always said that. He said, don't sacrifice integrity for wins. For a coach, that gave me some peace. We have a lot of pressure to winning games, but when a man of his stature, who is built the stadium, become the most powerful force with the university, he says, I want to be competitive. I want to come to the games and be competitive, and I want you to play by the rules. If you do that, then I'll be your supporter. If you don't play by the rules, I won't be a supporter. That's pretty powerful. And I'd always remembered that and was very appreciative of that. So, to Mr. Pickens' family and all the loved ones and the group that's been with him forever, I say thank you for allowing him the time on such a demanding schedule. And you guys always worked hard. I know how with Sally and Jay and all of you guys, how hard you had to work at times to get him steered in the right direction for the well-being for Oklahoma State. Because in the end, when he got here, he never forgot where he came from in Holdenville. He never forgot Oklahoma, and he never forgot Stillwater. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Coach Gundy. You know, Boone would want me to tell you, beat K-State, all right? So let's beat K-State, right? And he would want me to tell you, fill her up. So fill her up on Saturday. We'll see you at Boone Pickens Stadium. I want you to